Good evening. My name is Matthew Kent. Tonight I'm going to be speaking of this on the strategic use of space. By now you've heard a little bit about nonverbal communication as it relates to spatial zones as well as spatial differences. We've learned that there are zones that create different types of comfortability as well as some spatial differences between men and women. As we focus in on the purpose of strategic use of space, we want to understand the use of space as well as the value that it brings to the organization itself. Our agenda for our time is to understand the why. We want to tie back to that as always, as the why is unique and individualistic. We want to define some terms of what is fixed space versus semi-fixed space. So we're going to have some definitions around what that is. We also want to speak about the manager's responsibilities within the organization. They have the greatest ability to influence the employees and need to be aware of certain trends. Speaking of trends, we will talk through some current management trends within the United States that are happening and how companies are utilizing space. And then we'll conclude with some concluding thoughts and recap our time together. So strategic office space. Why is it important? You know, our greatest assets is our people, our employees. The creation of this exceptional employee experience leads to exceptional results. Office Space, the movie, is a classic example and probably our best opportunity here to talk about the use of strategic space. But if we have happy employees, we have a great company culture. So what are some definitions? What is fixed versus semi-fixed space? What are we even talking about here? So if we think of fixed space, think of like a large desk or a cubicle. Think of it as permanent, and also think of it as it can be a perceived barrier. So for example, if I'm obviously I'm on the other side of this desk. If I were to go around the desk, sit in the chair, it would be perceived as, you know, coming into his territory, so to speak. Those are his pencils, his phone, his files, his computer, his calendar. His TPS reports. Those are all his things, and so it's very important to know that a fixed space really talks about having this sense of permanency. So what is a semi-fixed space? You can look at this picture and you can think, hey, it's a conference table, it's a conference room. There's a lot of coordination or collaboration. There's shared responsibility. You can see the gentleman there leaning in and paying attention to what is being presented. You notice that there isn't one particular person that's necessarily in charge of this picture. It's very open, it's very spacious, and very collaborative. So you can see the difference between kind of a defined fixed space versus a semi-fixed space. When we think about the responsibilities, I was mentioning earlier that the responsibility of the manager is really the key to engaging in that employee experience. So what does a manager need to know when he's got maybe this tight office space, he's got, you know, employees with their hands crossed, like what does he need to know? They need to be aware that, you know, potentially it's intrusive. You know, small office spaces can be intrusive. Organizations, you know, you can create an air of power, or you can create an air of collegiality within the certain types of space. The amount of space, the amount of privacy, these are important things when it comes to the employee engagement, employee culture. Again, managers really need to understand and be aware that the type of space really speaks volume to their particular organization. So what are some trends out there? Currently, our average U.S. office space per employee is nearly half of what it was in the 1980s. Companies are reducing their footprint by about 30% by creating the rise of the cubicle in the name of collaboration and openness. You're seeing this rise of the cubicle culture as companies reduce their footprint and put more people in tighter spaces. You're going to also see an increase in communal space, so coffee shop areas, kind of areas to get away, areas to get out of the desk. So you see kind of an increase in that versus a standard office environment. In conclusion, we want to think through what is our real strategy. We want to create the employee experience. We want to empower employees to execute the programs to develop and retain employees. We want to make it easier for engagement. We need to know that managers need to be aware. They need to reduce that frustration. They have to focus on that strategy. And remember that the managers really do create the environment. And the strategy of how they use that space, whether it's fixed or semi-fixed, really gives the organization the agility that it needs to respond, to execute on organizational changes. Really creates that one flawless, consistent experience for that employee. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you again soon.